Now, I don't know about you, but I often find myself getting pretty bored of using the same guitar tones all the time. Now, I love all of the classic overdrive pedals that, those things that every guitar player needs to own. But every now and again, it's really nice to have something to lean on that's a little bit different and a little bit quirky to kind of inspire you to try some different things. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you something that is just that. This is a pedal from Hello Sailor Effects, and this is called the Shipwreck. So Hello Sailor Effects, if you've never heard of them before, are a UK-based boutique pedal brand. All of their pedals often have a maritime or military-based theme to them, and there's a big reason for that. Joe, that runs the brand, who I've known for a couple of years now, is actually a part of the Royal Navy. So a lot of these pedals have, kind of branding or names or things that kind of lean towards anything to do with maritime activity or his role in the Navy. And he actually builds a lot of these while away on duty on the ships as well. So as a result, a lot of these pedals often have some quite interesting or quirky parts, things he kind of comes across on his travels with the Navy. This pedal is the Shipwreck, and this is his new high-gain distortion pedal that is based loosely around the sound of a Trainwreck amplifier. So in this video, we're going to check this thing out and hear some of the sounds. Before we plug this thing in and hear some sounds, I want to let you guys know that this is not a sponsored video today. Hello Sailor Effects are not paying me to make this video. Joe from Hello Sailor Effects built this pedal specifically for me and sent it to me because he wanted my opinion on it. And I said to him I would make a video about it because that's a great way to show what this thing can do. He's not sponsoring the video, but he did build this pedal specifically for me. And as always, all the thoughts and opinions are my own. So, as I said, the Shipwreck is kind of loosely based around a Trainwreck amplifier. So it's kind of got a big blooming low end, and it sort of verges on fuzz territory when you actually start cranking it. Now, I'm going to preface all of this by saying I've never played a Trainwreck amp myself. In fact, I don't even think I've heard one in the same room before, let alone gotten to spend some time with one. Because, if you know what Trainwreck amps are, you'll know how rare and how expensive they are. They're probably the only other thing on the market that kind of is chasing up with the Dumble prices at the moment. But what I have heard on record and in videos, they sound great. Now, Joe's a big fan of them and he builds a lot of clones of their amps as well. But this is kind of a Trainwreck inspired distortion. And he actually told me this is the highest gain distortion that Hello Sailor have ever made. So the cool thing with this pedal is you'll never get one that looks the same. Now, as you can see from this one, it is all done by hand. So he sprays and relics the enclosures himself, does all the transfers himself, and every single one he makes will look different. He makes pedals in clone style enclosures, in all different kinds of things. Go check out his website down below and you'll see exactly what I mean. You'll never get one of these things that looks like anything else. This particular one is a really cool red finish that he did for me. And as you can see on the back, it says they're built for Lee. So this is a really cool pedal. So thank you, Joe, for sending me this because I really like this and it's a really fun distortion pedal. Now, one thing that Joe does, which I kind of like actually, and it kind of goes with the quirkiness of his brand and what he does, is you'll notice that nothing on this pedal is actually labeled. So you don't know what any of these things do. You kind of have to guess. And I quite enjoy that sometimes because it really makes you think about the sound you're hearing rather than what your eyes are telling you. Sometimes you might set a EQ control a certain way and visually that will align with what you believe that EQ should be. But that's because your eyes are telling you. When you don't have things labeled, you kind of have to listen to it a bit more and actually make those decisions by listening to it. So what I have done is I've kind of worked out roughly what these three things do. So this one is sort of like a gain control, but kind of like a pre-gain. And then this one here is like an output volume, but it also adds saturation as well. So these two controls are kind of two different gain stages, or at least this is how I'm understanding the circuit. And they're very, very reactive with each other. So this one you use kind of to push this one. So if this is set a bit lower, this one is kind of cleaner. And as you kind of push this, this one gets a bit more compressed. The two things kind of work together very well. And then in the middle, we have a tone control. There's also a three-way position switch here. Now what this does is this selects three different clipping options. Now once again, because it's not labeled, I don't know what each position is, but again, you kind of use your ears to decide what works best for you. The three positions of this give you asymmetrical silicon clipping, symmetrical silicon clipping, and asymmetrical silicon and germanium clipping. And what I also want to do is I want to show you the inside of this pedal, because like I said, Joe builds a lot of this stuff while he's away on the ships, and he's building more and more in the UK now as well. But as a result, a lot of the components are slightly quirkier. So he uses a lot of vintage components, new old stock stuff, just basically anything cool he can get his hands on and put into a circuit. And he does everything with vintage tag board. It's all kind of point to point done. So the insides of these look really cool as well. And you can see right here. Now this is quite a busy circuit. This is typically a little bit busier than some of the other pedals that I've seen of Joe's because there's a little bit more going on here. But as you can see, those are not really your kind of standard components. Now, if you were to go on Joe's website and buy another one of these, the chances are you would open it up and it wouldn't even look like this because he will have used similar but slightly different components to what is inside mine. The cool thing with this is something that is never ever seen, but he puts so much attention into just how the inside of this looks. And most people will never even open these things up, but the insides are just as cool looking as the outsides of his pedals. And I think that's a really important thing. And it kind of aligns with his branding as well. It's sort of quirky, a little bit vintage, and very much different to what you get off the shelf. But yeah, I mean, you know, you've seen what this is. It's not really a pedal with a ton of different options. There's three knobs. Two of those are pretty much gain and volume combined and a tone control. So the best thing to do is for me to plug this thing in and show you some of the sounds. So gear-wise in the video, I'm using my Chapman Guitars ML1 Pro X. That's going into the Blackstar Studio 10 6L6, which is running completely clean, and that's going via the 2-Notes Torpedo Captor X. So the clean tone I'm using is this. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, this pedal is the highest gain pedal that Hello Sailor Effects have done. And when Joe was designing this, he kind of went after the sounds of a Trainwreck amp. Now what a Trainwreck amp is very compressed with a kind of a bloomy low end. And as you push it, it sort of verges into some fuzz territory. So I'm going to start off just by playing with the three knobs in the midnight position so you can hear kind of a standard tone from this. And I'm just going to leave the clipping selector in the up position for now. This is a three-way switch that goes through those three different clipping options that I mentioned. Now, even with everything at midnight, you can kind of hear that that is just on the verge of kind of going into fuzz. It's a really nice sound actually, and it's very different to your typical overdrive sounds because it's got that bloom to it and that little bit of kind of aggression in the top end, which I really like. Now, the three controls are very, very interactive with each other. So this control sort of feeds this control. Now, this one is sort of your output. So the more you push this one, the more volume you get, but also the more saturation you get, kind of like if you crank a master volume on an amp. What this control does is it's kind of like a gain control, but kind of like, I guess I would explain it like I did earlier, kind of like a pre-gain. So this one kind of keeps the volume the same, but it pushes this circuit harder. So the higher this is set, the harder this one seems to work. So if I go all the way down, we still get kind of the same gain levels, but it's not as full sounding as it was just now. It kind of reacts like a bias control in that sense, like when it's all the way down you get that sort of starved fuzz sound, and then as we increase this control it brings in that sort of body. That is a really interesting control because it just kind of pushes the second gain stage that little bit more. So the higher it is, the more you get that kind of low end bloom. That's really noticeable when you ring chords out. That's really full sounding compared to this one. It's kind of like it takes the low end off, but it also pushes a little bit more as well. Now that, as I said, is really interactive with this control. So if we go back to the halfway point here, and we turn this one down, this is going to lose volume and also saturation. So that's actually gone really, really quiet, as you can hear. And I only turned it down a quarter of the way. If we use this as a boost, kind of kicks it up a little bit, but this control sort of needs to be around here before we start getting a usable signal. You can hear how much cleaner that is now because we're sort of taking that master volume down. Even just that little adjustment like that changes the saturation levels quite a bit. So with it down lower, we can once again give it a bit of a kick. So it's really interesting because you can do some of those kind of starved fuzz pedal sounds. But then when we get to that midnight position where we started, then we're in a kind of a really good fat overdrive territory. As we increase this control, that gain just goes up and up. So we got to here. So that has brought the saturation up, but also the level has come up. Now we can use this control now to once again push that harder or less hard. That kind of sits it in some sort of fuzz territory, and then if we push it harder, now we're really getting into that kind of really cooking amp sound. As we increase this again, you'll notice it's also increasing the compression as well. So it's kind of blooming more, dipping into some fuzz territory, and it's really fat. Now Now that is a really fun sound because that's very different to any other overdrive pedal that I have owned or currently own. It really does kind of feel a bit more like a cranked amp, which I know is that thing that a lot of overdrive companies are always trying to nail, is the amp in the box tone. I think Joe's really nailed the feel of that with this. Now this is also very responsive, so if I roll the guitar volume down, you can see how that's got a huge dynamic range to it. We can go from just above the 0 point which is a really nice kind of bluesy tone. It takes single coils well too. And then when we crank it, we get that kind of fat sound again. So now I'm going to look at the tone control range. So I'm just going to bring the saturation down to a bit more of a manageable level. And I'm going to move this from all the way down to all the way up so you can hear the range of what this does. Now it's quite a subtle tone control. It really makes a difference more to the high end than anything. So this could be like a high end roll off rather than an overall tone. So we'll start in the middle and we'll go backwards and then forward. So again, kind of subtle, but you can hear it's doing something there in the top end. Now these three controls are really powerful together because you can get some really versatile sounds out of this, from some starved fuzz sounds right up to some kind of crazy sounds. Now the one thing I haven't done yet is talk about the 3-position clipping switch. Now this engages different clipping options. So you've got asymmetrical silicon clipping, asymmetrical silicon and germanium clipping, and symmetrical silicon clipping. Now, like I said, nothing's labeled, so I don't know which position is which. But let's listen to the three of them anyway and see what they sound like. Now that third position feels, again, a little bit more compressed. It's like a feel thing, maybe more than a sound thing, because there's not a huge difference if we just flip through the 3 positions, but they do feel slightly different. This top setting feels a lot snappier. This bottom setting definitely feels like it's kind of got a bit more sag to it. And, you know, kind of like an amp, amps that sag and naturally compress kind of feel a little bit easier to play. So that bottom setting kind of feels a bit bouncier than the top setting. The top setting's definitely a lot snappier. Now, like I said, I don't actually know which one's which because they're not labeled. But Joe, if you are watching this video, let me know down below in the comments if I guessed right what everything does, because I've based this just on how it sounds and how it feels. But you're the man who built it, so let me know down below what the 3 positions are on the toggle switch and what the 3 controls are, or whether I've completely missed the mark with what I thought these things do. But yeah, there it is. There is the Hello Sailor Effects Shipwreck. Thank you to Joe for sending this thing over to me. I really like this. And like I said at the start, it's very different to anything else I own. And, you know, as a guitar player, and I'm probably speaking for a few of you guys as well, we often lean towards sounds that we're comfortable with. So we go to the same pedals, the same amps, the same guitars, because those are our kind of classic sounds. But what Joe's done here is he's not made a Tube Screamer clone, he's based something on a Trainwreck amp. And that's really interesting because most of us will never ever get the experience to play a Trainwreck amp in real life. But it's such a different sound to what you get from your regular pedals. And it's quite hard, or at least from speaking for myself, to not kind of feel inspired by that, because it's a different tone and it kind of takes me somewhere different as a player. And I always like pedals that kind of challenge me that way, because I know what my usual rig consists of and I know how safe and comfortable that is, but this takes me away from that comfort zone, but still gives me a great sound, and a great sound that I can do something slightly different with regards to my playing or my feel on the instrument. It kind of makes you change a little bit as a player. And that is always a piece of gear that I find very, very interesting. So yeah, once again, thank you, Joe, for sending this thing over. If you guys want to check this thing out, there's some links to Joe's website down below in the description. Please go check it out. He makes some really cool stuff. He doesn't just do this pedal, he's got a bunch of other things on the website as well. But yeah, please check it out. It's something different, and it's something that you're not going to get the sound of anywhere else, I think. It's definitely something a bit quirkier that will make you kind of move a little bit with your tone, and yeah, kind of takes you into some new territories. Let me know what you guys think of the sound of this thing down below in the comments, and check out the website. It's linked down there as well. While you're doing that, don't forget to hit that like button, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel as well. And I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you so much for watching as always.